Hey guys, so for this video I'll be filming my collection for 9MUSES. This is a complete collection which I'm really happy about. Um yes, and I'll kind of discuss about each specific item here and there. But obviously 9MUSES has disbanded, so they won't be releasing music anymore, unfortunately. But they hold a very special place in my heart. They are one of my favorite K-pop girl groups of all time. They have some of my favorite K-pop songs, which is why I really wanted to have a complete collection for them, because I thoroughly enjoyed listening to their albums and their singles. Just everything was on point when it came to 9MUSES. In my opinion, they deserved a lot better, but I'm so happy that they lasted as much as they did, since they really lacked a lot of support from just the Korean public and in general. But now for those fans who want to see what albums they put out throughout the years, stick around. Or if you're planning to collect 9MUSES, which is very complicated now, because basically 90% of their albums are out of print, and probably by next year it's gonna be everything. Yeah, so I don't know too much of what's really out of print or not. At least for the most part I know a lot of things, but other stuff I just completely don't know. Which is mainly just the last stuff that they released, which is, last time I checked, which was a long time ago, it was pretty easy to get it, but I'm sure that it will be very difficult in this upcoming years, because it's not like they have a very large fan base. So I'll go through each album, and yes, so those who are kind of curious of what physical releases they have, I'll be showing them. So the first item that I have is Let's Have a Party. This is their debut album with no Playboy. Yeah, it's just this album is probably the most difficult album to get for 9MUSES. I just got really lucky when I got it. It's, yeah, I don't even know how else to advise anyone to get this album. If you ever see it for a decent price, like, and by decent price I mean 20 to 30, almost $40, that's probably a steal for this. But I've seen it being sold for 200 and up, which is just completely ridiculous. I would never spend that much money on a K-pop album, but I'm very happy that I have their debut. And this lineup, 9MUSES had three solid, I wouldn't say solid, but three generations of lineups. But at least that's the way I see it. This was their first one. It didn't last almost any. It didn't really have much longevity. And then they had their second run, and then their third one was when then Kumjo and Sojin were added to the group. That's at least how I see it. Then we had Sweet Rendezvous, which is probably one of the best mini albums in all of K-pop, in my opinion. I love the packaging. It's like a train ticket. It's just absolutely amazing, and this is full of just great songs. You got Ticket, News, Figaro, which were all singles, and Who Are You is a really good song as well. Yeah, they definitely killed it with this release. Then we have Dolls, which is their second single. This is another fantastic comeback for them. You got at least 3 songs in it. Well, technically 2 songs because the first song is just an intro. And yes, amazing. Then we have Wild. This packaging isn't my favorite. Wild is one of my favorite songs from 9MUSES. I don't have the disc here because I stored it somewhere else. But as you can see, it's just a really thin cardboard. So you really have to take really good care of this. And yes, fantastic mini album though. And then a huge improvement from this. We have a really hardcover photo book. This is Prima Donna, their first and only studio album. The title track for this was Gun. And yes, the photos are really high quality as well. 9MUSES really just went hard during 2013. They had Dolls, Wild, Gun, and then Glue. Glue is unfortunately just a digital single, and there is not on any of their albums, which I'm really upset about because it's one of my favorite 9MUSES songs. Then we have their kind of new lineup with this kind of era. They really took I think a year of hiatus, which I don't really recommend for any group, especially if once you were gaining momentum. But then we finally have a new lineup, and the packaging is good. They came up with Drama, and yes, really good comeback. Then we had a summer release, summer special, and this is their song Hurt Locker, which I think is probably the song and kind of newer K-pop fans know that from 9MUSES. It's a really, really good song. The only thing I don't like about this is that it has like 2 separate little photo books, and I obviously try to stick them together, but I wish there was just like either like a box or something to, yeah, or just this pictures in here to be in there, but it's just extra photos in here, and they look absolutely stunning. It's just a great summer comeback. Then we have kind of their winter type of fall single, and their mini album Lost. They went kind of more on the mature side with this release. The only thing I think that's kind of, I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of just these type of extras. It's like a standee, but you know, great mini album regardless. I thoroughly just enjoy their music. One thing that Star Empire did right, which is one they really didn't do much when it came to doing good things, is having really solid albums. Yeah. Then they had their subunit, which is not really a subunit because they just continued with this lineup. So technically, 9MUSES, I guess, has 4 generations in a way. This is 9MUSES A, and it's just 2 new members, which are Kumjo and Sojin, which joined during the drama era, and Hemi and Kyunglee, but still a great mini album. It's just, or I don't know if this, a single, but it can be almost a mini album. It has 4 songs, and again, very solid tracks. That's one thing that I love about 9MUSES is the fact that you don't really get filler songs, and that's a A+ for me. And then we got Identity. This is kind of like their last release. Their single for this was Remember. The single for this was Lip to Lip. And yes, really, really, really pretty photo book. And actually, good thing that this actually this is solid packaging. The thing with these foamy CD holders is the fact that sometimes they don't stick as like really well, but the good thing is that you can just put it there because it has like this structure where you can just put it back, so I don't really mind. Really good photo book. The photos are absolutely stunning. So, and then we got the repackage of this release, which is Love City, and this is their last release, unfortunately. And yes, it kind of follows the same packaging for that, but obviously this foamy thing was stuck a little bit better. And then we have the track list. Let's just have the track list here. So we got Love City, Remember. Yeah, so it's just one more song. And this has the instrumental for Remember and the instrumental for Love City. So yes, this is 9MUSES discography, which is actually not that bad when it comes to just having releases. The only thing with 9MUSES, which I think didn't really benefit their success, was the fact that they had really inconsistent comeback periods. What do I mean by that? So let me kind of put this. So 9MUSES had a hiatus after their debut because they got a lot of hate from the public and a lot of Girls' Generation fans because they had 9 members and it was just insane. They had a lot of hate, and they got a lot of hate in general because they were not necessarily ready to debut. This is kind of like just a chit chat for those who may not know about 9MUSES, but I highly recommend listening to their discography. They really have half of their discography is kind of more of sweet tune based, and then the other half, starting from Drama, is not sweet tune based, but it's pretty good as well. But again, going back to kind of like their history, so for those who don't know much about 9MUSES, they got a lot of hate with their first release with this one, and they got criticized for not being able to sing live and just not being like very good on stage. They took that year off to really work. Some girls left the group, and then they were planning to add new members, and they came back with Figaro, and they came back hard. And with Figaro, they gained a lot of momentum. Then they had Muse and Ticket, which all did pretty well, and they were really solid songs, and they were kind of on their way to get there. Then they took yet another long hiatus to come back with Dolls. With this one, they had a new kind of solid lineup now that they had let's see, 9 members again. And of course Dolls was a solid single. They did pretty well with it, and overall in 2013 they had a solid year, and they were on their way to kind of break out. And they had 4 comebacks, so that's a lot for a year. 1 single, a mini album, a full-length album, and a digital single. They were all really good comebacks. Then one of their most popular members, Sera, left. If you don't know about her, check her YouTube out. She has cute videos where she reacts and reviews like Kpop comebacks and does covers sometimes. She left. Some other members started leaving, and that's where Kumjo and Sojin joined the group, but it was much later because this comeback, so they took a whole entire year where they didn't release anything. So a huge gap after releasing 4 albums or 4 releases. Yes, huge, just mistake on Star Empire's part. They try to do it again. They release a mini album, three mini albums. So you got 1, 2, 3. None of them really hit off. They were all solid releases, and yes, then they try to do a subunit. It didn't do much. More members left, and then we get their last 2 releases. And then we got Kyungri, who released a digital solo single. I don't know if it was before or after their disbandment announcement. I think it was before. So yeah, 9MUSES just had very inconsistent promotional cycles. But you know, luckily we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 physical releases, which some groups don't get as much. So at least there's something to have, you know, in your, if you were a mine, which is a 9MUSES fan. Yeah, unfortunately it went down like that, and I wanted to talk about that in this video for those who kind of support groups that are more on the lesser and, you know, known. And usually now that K-pop has more global fan base, I feel like groups have more of a higher chance of survival rate, since more people seem to be buying physical albums and all of that. But if you don't support them buying their albums and all of that, it's just, this is what happens. Like you get inconsistent comebacks, or they just plan out disband right away. And yeah, I just really want to comment on the support, because I feel like a lot of people enjoy 9MUSES music. They were just not there for them when it came to just actually purchasing the albums, because they have one of the most solid discographies in all of K-pop, and that's having a bit of an unbiased point, because they're not one of the largest girl groups. But it's just, when it comes down to a discography, 9MUSES is one of those groups that's really up there, because they rarely have any filler tracks in their albums. And even Girls' Generation has some albums that have kind of just weaker songs, and I'm a So On. They're my number one, and not necessarily making comparisons to both of them, but it's a very difficult thing to do, and they managed to do that. But anyways, I'm really glad that I have the complete collection. If you have any other questions, please comment down below. My biggest tip for collecting 9MUSES is just, I would say Amazon Japan, Japanese proxy sites. That's probably the best place. You're probably gonna have decent prices, and I can't even assure that, because their stuff is just really rare now, unfortunately. But either way, if you can't collect them, I recommend listening to their albums and watching their music videos, because they really have some really good music. And you can always just obviously purchase their albums on iTunes and stuff, and other digital platforms. And yeah, thanks guys, I hope you enjoyed this video.